Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alicia Barrett with Binny's, and tonight we have Todd Graff, the winemaker and general manager of Frank Family Vineyards, a winery that I know is loved by so many of our Binny's customers. Todd has been with them for, I think, over 17 vintages now, and has really been a driving force for the steady growth that we've seen. And you've won numerous awards, Todd, including recently Napa Winemaker of the Year. So we really appreciate you joining us to share more about the Frank family story and walk us through 4 of your wines tonight.
Great. No, welcome everybody. I'd love to do that. And do you want to start at Chardonnay and work our way through? Does everybody have wines? If you don't have wines, open something. Yes.
Yeah, be tasting something. Hopefully you have one or maybe a few of the Frank family wines in front of you. We are going to start with the Chardonnay and then move our way through the reds. And as people are tasting their Chardonnay, Todd, if you don't mind, before we even kind of get to Frank family, I want to hear about you and kind of your career in wine, kind of what led to kind of where you are today. What initially attracted you to the wine industry?
Great. Thanks, but might not keep everybody awake, but we're fine. No, I'm very lucky. I grew up in Sonoma County, so I didn't get very far. So it's not like some great story, but I knew I wanted to stay in Northern California. I knew I wanted to be in agriculture. And at that age where you don't know what you're going to do with the rest of your life, fortunately, an hour and a half away is a university called University of California at Davis that has a wine program. And I was fortunate enough to get into that school, and I went there to study winemaking for some reason. Sure, my parents really didn't understand that at all, or either did I maybe, but it was cool. And how many college kids get to drink wine for their studies? Everybody drinks in college, but drinking for studies. But so the first job I got offered out of college was at Phelps, was in Napa. Joseph Phelps, great winery, super fantastic family. So I came to Napa and I've never left. And then I've had a great fortune to work for some Stag's Leap, Schramsberg, and Frank family. So it's been a great trip of some great families, and even though I only work about an hour away from where I grew up, I was able to travel around the world. So and keep traveling around the world. So it's been fun, and I get to work with some of my best friends. So it's fantastic.
Well, that sounds like a dream job. And yes, you've worked at some very reputable.
If you make a decision when you're, pre-20, that was the best decision you've ever made in your life. It's pretty cool.
And you touched on it, Todd. You've had the ability to make wine all over the world, including regions like the Mosel in Germany, Saint-Emilion in Bordeaux, and Hunter Valley in Australia, among others. How did each of those experiences kind of influence you and your winemaking philosophy? What did you bring back from those?
Winemaking wise, it's great. It's it shows you there's more ways to skin a cat. You just don't have to follow one direction. And it's great. It's the Swiss Army knife of, hey, didn't we do this in Bordeaux back in '86? Why don't we try this again? Or didn't the Australians do this? Didn't the Germans do that? Portuguese. I spent 5 years in Portugal. Winemaking wise, it's great, but life is even better. You grow up, you meet people, and the world's a great place to see, and that's what it allowed you, and you can continue. One of my best stories ever is I worked in Australia 35 years ago now, maybe, and we had a 30th reunion in Maui where 2 Aussies, a Kiwi, a couple Yanks came over, and we rented a big house, and we still all get, everybody I worked with when I traveled, I still talk to today. And so it's life. It's not just winemaking. And wine country is in the best part, arguably, I guess, because the best parts of, Napa Valley's gorgeous. The Finger Lakes is gorgeous. The Mosel's gorgeous. The wine countries of Australia and New Zealand are gorgeous. So they're in good people, good food, good scenery. So it's a great life.
So speaking of gorgeous places, let's dive into Napa Valley. And we'll start, as you mentioned, with your Chardonnay. And I always forget to mention, so I hope it's obvious to those tuning in on Zoom, but please do ask questions with the Q&A function or the chat function. We'd love to hear from you. I'm sure Todd would as well. So let's dive into the Carneros Chardonnay, and I can throw up a slide of the Lewis Vineyard if you'd like, but tell us a little bit about this wine, and then we'll get into kind of Frank family and its founding.
Great. So Chardonnay is our single largest bottling, and it'd be great if you throw up the map because that's the foundation of Carneros. And I assume everybody can hear me. So the Carneros is the southern end of Napa Valley, and it's kind of where Napa meets Sonoma. So near San Pablo Bay, the closest part, and the coolest region of Napa Valley. And we own 80 acres down there, and this is the foundation of this wine. But right next door is Beckstoffer Vineyard. Down the road on the Sonoma side is the San Giacomo Vineyard. We have plenty of mom and pops all around us. So that's the Lewis Vineyard on this map here that you see in the southern part is the coolest part of Napa Valley, and that's the foundation of this wine. And then that's the grape growing part of it. And this is a great map right here because it takes our blocks and then shows you the blocks. And the green lime, if you want, is Chardonnay. We're going to eventually get to the Pinot, and that's the purple block. So you can see it's heavily planted to Chardonnay. But to the left of this map is Beckstoffer. And I love this map because it just kind of shows the rolling hills of Carneros. And at the bottom of it, you actually see kind of the edge of San Pablo Bay. So you can see it's cool bay waters. So this is what Carneros is all about. And this is a blend of many vineyards in Carneros. It's all barrel fermented. We're a French oak house. That doesn't mean a whole lot. It doesn't mean to mean anything. It's just, I like the delicate aspects of French oak. So we're a French oak house, barrel fermented. This blend is about a third new every vintage, but 2/3 used oak. And again, I'm looking for structure and balance for all these wines. And you'll see a family style, I think, of structure and balance. But anyway, there's aromatics of great fruit. There's a little spice from the barrel, and then richness from the barrel and the fruit. I hope you see.
Yeah, I was commenting to a colleague when I was tasting this earlier, your approach with the French oak is superb. And I think it is consistent throughout the whole palate, but really well integrated. And as you said, very well balanced. It still lets the fruit shine in the wine. I also want to ask you about, I think you're doing full mallow on the wine. Is that right?
No, we're actually not, which is,
okay.
So in mallow, so if we want to talk about malolactic fermentation, I mean, there's a whole, 3-day conversation, but we'll cut it down to half a second. I use it as a tool. If the vineyard has high acidity, we use that, but some vineyards don't have high acidity, so we avoid it. So I'd say we're probably 65-70% malolactic in this wine here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, structurally, it just gives such a nice kind of roundness of texture, and with a little bit of that kind of lees stirring as well, adding to it. So really lovely, balanced, fresh Chardonnay here from Carneros. So Todd, Frank Family Vineyards, founded in 1992 and owned by Rich Frank and former Disney Studios president, correct?
Correct. Yes. And and good golfer, you know, because we just played golf yesterday. So I didn't actually know him when he was at Disney. So so I talked to him about his golfing game more than his Disney game. No, if he's watching, I hope he laughs at that. No, but you know, he ran Paramount Studios and Disney Studios. He's a great guy, mentor. Not only a great guy, mentor, great businessman, and you know, it all starts at the top, and that's why we've done what we've done today.
And can you, so it's Rich and his wife, Leslie, behind the team here. And tell us a little bit about kind of when they started, what was their kind of vision for the winery, and what have you hoped to achieve in your tenure there?
Yeah, no, it's been fun. It's been organic and dynamic. It's, I think Rich would say in the early 90s, I don't know if he'd say this. I'd say he bought a beautiful house in Rutherford that had some green plants on the side of the hill. He didn't know what they were. And then once he bought the house, he found out they were grapevines. And now he had to do something with them. But then he would say, oh, I got all these phone calls that everybody wants to buy my grapes. But these little green plants on the side of the hill are pretty important, I think. And then he thought, okay, I got this vineyard. Maybe I'll make a few cases for friends, and I'll give them away at Christmas to my LA Hollywood friends. And then he ended up meeting Kerner Rombauer, and they formed a little partnership, and Rich ended up owning a winery, and then the rest is history. And so we started out pretty small. We started out in a little shed under a tree and sold some wine out of the shed. And then I think back then all the barrels had names now. And then we just kept growing. Demand just kept making us grow and grow and grow. And we started only selling it out of the shed, then California, and then Nevada, then Arizona, then Oregon, Washington. And then next thing you know, we're in everywhere but Connecticut, maybe, or Vermont. I don't know which one, but so we're in all states now and a few international countries. So over time, it's turned out really well.
I'd say, given the demand at Benny's here in Illinois, I think that is definitely true.
You've been big supporters the whole time, so it's super fun to see that. And it's super fun to see a little winery that nobody heard of a few years ago to be in Illinois. So it's great.
Yes. Well, the quality speaks to it, and we will continue on that journey with the Carneros Pinot Noir. We saw some of those, the plantings down there in the Lewis Vineyard, correct, that we just looked at.
Very similar. It's the sibling. So I'm pouring a little bit of myself. It's the so I have the 18. I'm not sure what everybody else is drinking, the 18 Pinot, but it's the same vineyard. So 18 and 19 were pretty dang good years for growing grapes, but all sibling vineyards. So where we buy Chardonnay, we buy Pinot too. So Beckstoffer, San Giacomo, our vineyard, some small mom and pops. Anyway.
There's so much kind of cranberry and pomegranate and really fresh red fruit on the nose, I find, and then on the palate, it kind of almost grows in its richness.
I like that, how it grows. No, it's really full mouthfeel. So it's great and well balanced. And this is, again, a great wine. If somebody's having poultry, if somebody's having salmon, if somebody's having hack steak or anything, it just goes. It's a food wine. And I know it's a little cliche, but I drink a lot of Pinot because you're usually eating when you're drinking.
And this Pinot too is very versatile. I think because of the fruit concentration, you shouldn't be afraid to pair it with a lot of different things. And sometimes I think we talk about the delicacy of Pinot Noir, but there's plenty of substance here while still being true to its refreshing kind of high acid nature that you can, I think, be quite adventurous with what you do with it. A couple questions for you here, Todd, that have come in, and kind of going back to your Chardonnay here. One, can you talk about aging your Chardonnay? So kind of what's your approach there with maturation? And I'll throw in the second as well, because it's also about the Chard, but would you say the approach to balanced Chardonnay has stayed the same, or did Frank family originally make a richer Chardonnay at first a la Rambauer?
So great question. So you're gonna have to repeat them again. No, so aging is the first one I know.
Yeah.
So yes, so thus the reason of the partial malolactic, not the full blown malo, is we do want them to age. You know, as soon as I said that, then I think, well, that's not 100% true, because we do a vineyard designated out of our Lewis. It's 100% malo, and I'm drinking the 2004 right now, and I'm really loving it. So I think we fall into that category. And again, sorry, I'm not in the marketing department. So we fall into that category of, you know, I like my Chards 3 years for the Napa Valley. For the reserve Lewis Vineyard, I like them a little longer, but 3-4 years. But the 17 Carneros is drinking fantastic right now. So if you take that, our current release is just the 19, so that's just a few years. I would aim in that window, if you would. And then the next question of the richer a la Rambauer, that's good knowledge on people. 20 years ago, the wines were pretty much made by somebody from a Rambauer team before I got here. So they were kind of they were similar or Rambauer light, I guess. And then when I started, it was pretty easy to say, well, Rambauer is super successful and good and this and that. And why do we want to make the same thing? Let's make something that I want to drink. So I make stuff I want to drink. And so we've lightened up on the Rambauer style since I've been here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can't fault anyone for making something they want to drink. It's a good approach. So next up, we're doing 4 wines, so we're kind of going at a quicker pace tonight. I want to go to your Zinfandel.
Cool.
And I'd love to just hear your thoughts on Zinfandel as a variety, and of course not native to California. The state really has made it its own. So what are your thoughts on California Zin, and kind of where does your Napa Valley Zin, do you think, kind of fit in with the kind of various styles that exist?
I don't know. No, I'm joking. You're right. It's not California's own, but we have made it our heritage grape. You know, the stories are the immigrants, the gold rush, they all brought it over. We all know it. You know, Eastern European and Italy touched base and then came over with the immigrants, and all good stories. And so it is not California's native grape, but it is its heritage grape. I don't know. So first of all, it is grown in other areas, but not as much as California. And so we have it. We make it kind of our style. I have some great growers that I work with, and all over. It's a true Napa blend. Charles Valley, a little Eastern appellation from it's still Napa Valley, but it's a sub-appellation in Napa, is the foundation of this wine. But I have a vineyard planted in the 50s in Calistoga, a vineyard planted in the 50s in St. Helena. So there's some older vine stuff. I always blend a little Petite Syrah, talking about a misunderstood grape also into this. And again, we're looking for the family style balance. It's not a weak wine, but we're not trying to make 17% alcohol. We're trying to make rich, fresh, good wines. And Zinfandel on its own, it's not a super black grape. When you see a super dark Zinfandel, there's usually something else in it. And we like to try to keep our wines typical of the variety. So we're trying to do balanced Zinfandel, and I think they're fresh and they're fun, and if you have barbecue or anything like that, I think they're fantastic.
And this one, according to the tech sheet, at least when I looked it up, 16 months you're putting this in French oak, but just a third of that is new. And so we get kind of that play on Zinfandel when you smell and taste it, that you get both like beautifully kind of ripe and juicy fruit, along with some that, you know, smells a little bit tartar, and then that spiciness that comes through. It is really nice and still very, very fresh, because I have had plenty of kind of very kind of jammy, overripe Zinfandels, and this is not that. So really, really beautiful wine.
We're not trying to make that stuff. And great you brought up, I keep forgetting about, so those are all French Burgundian barrels. So, and we treat Zinfandel like we do Cabernet and Chardonnay and Pinot. We don't, it's not a weak cousin. It's a very important varietal in our lineup. So we do the 1/3 new, same as the Pinot, same as the Chard, same as the Cab we'll taste next. And we treat it to really great barrels. We have open top tanks, so we can do punch downs sometimes. So we can make it Pinot Noir like. We can make it, we can treat it different ways. So we give it a lot of special attention. So it gets the Napa Valley spa treatment. So we're good.
I love it. You mentioned the Cabernet, which we'll go to next, but first I want to ask about your achievement while at Frank Family. You've achieved a green certification for both your winery and your vineyards, and I was hoping that you could share exactly what that means and what you had to do to achieve that.
Great. Well, what we had to do is drive a lot of people crazy, first of all, and then so what Napa Valley Green means is that you start monitoring and measuring parameters. So it's not, so if you used, I'm going to make it up to make it simple. If you used 100 gallons of gasoline last year in your car, they're asking you to use less and monitor it, you know, use less next year. And then next year use less, and then next year use less. And then for the example, you know, maybe in 20 years you have an electric car. So they don't say you have to change overnight. It's just, let's start monitoring the parameters, and let's pay attention to recycling, to water use. So we have meters on every water pump around, so we know how much water we're using. We know how much recycling we do. We double side paper. You know, I'm making stuff up, but you just focus on trying to get better, and then every 3 years you have to get better than what you did before. You know, you have LED bulbs, you have motion detectors, so when somebody leaves the room, the light goes off on its own. You have water restrictors. Water power are the big things, but you're just trying to be smart. And then in the vineyard, you do the exact same thing. If you used X water, you know, use it when you need it. You just don't use it. And then monitor it, and then try to get better and be smarter. It's all about being smarter. I guess that's the best way to say it. It's just be smarter, and it makes sense to everybody. They're not saying you can't do anything. It just be smarter.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that it's incremental growth and progress. You know, to your point that it's not, you have to change everything overnight just because of the cost that's associated with that. It becomes impractical. So I think that's a really realistic way of approaching it.
And everybody's, because of that approach, you allow a lot of people to participate. So I think it's a better method.
Yeah. Well, let's go to your Cabernet Sauvignon here. I have the 18, which is in stores now. And I've heard by many people that 2018 was kind of this Goldilocks vintage in Napa. And maybe share, if you can share a little bit about kind of what made 2018 so great for you and so great for this wine in particular, and then we'll get into the meat of the wine.
Great. So 18, I use that term Goldilocks a lot because the weather was pretty even, and I say this a lot. The only time you want to be average is with your weather. You really don't want to be average with anything but weather is pretty dang good. So harvest went to like mid-November, which that 2 weeks doesn't seem like a lot because usually we're done with harvest by the end of October. But mid-November, that allowed us a lot more hang time. Our tanks were all full. It was a big vintage also, so we were getting a lot of grapes, and the wineries were full. And we didn't know how we were going to crush it all because it usually happens in small time. But because the weather was so mild, we were able to stretch out and use the winery as much more efficiently. So it was great. So that was also lucky thing. We don't know going into this that it's going to happen. So we're all stressing out, but it eventually turned out really well. So we got great weather. We got a lot of fruit, and then the fruit turned out fantastic. So the wine quality is fantastic.
And you've blended in a little bit of Petit Verdot and Merlot into this wine. Do you always do that? And do you always do them at 2%? Or is it just each year having a taste and seeing what Mother Nature gave you and going from there?
It is always each year. But we do like to blend a little of the other varietals in there. And there's a little Franc sometimes in here too. So we've redeveloped the vineyard that we are planting some Petit Verdot, some Merlot, obviously Cabernet. So we'll always do this, but it's a year by year on the percentage.
Okay. And what is it about, if you can just share with our consumers, what is it about Petit Verdot and Merlot that you're looking to add to the Cabernet? What do those contribute?
Great. So first of all, there's the farming aspect of it. They all ripen it a little different. They all grow a little different. They all bloom it a little different. So if you own a vineyard, theoretically, if you plant it to 100% of something, Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, and the weather is wrong at that time, you might lose 100% of your crop. But if you plant a little Merlot, a little Franc, Cabernet Franc, a little Petit Verdot, so this was learned in Bordeaux 200-300 years ago. So we're not inventing this. We're copying the heck out of it. And so as a grower, you want to plant different things to just hedge your bets. But also, once you start making wine, Cabernet has a specific profile. For me, when it was funny to hear you say 2%, it was like, how did she know how much Petit Verdot? For me, I'm a 2 to 3% Petit Verdot guy. It's a structured wine. It's dark. It's heavy. There's a reason that most people, again, this is an opinion, not a fact. Most people don't bottle it by itself. You very seldom do you see one. Once in a blue moon you do, but it's more angular. It's not a complete wine in my opinion, but at 2 to 3%. And I know for our viewers that it's like, who cares about 2 or 3%? That's the great thing about what we do for a living is 2 to 3% matter. So that 2 to 3% Petit Verdot matter. Merlot is more of a softening, a roundness, and Merlot grows better. So, and as a grower, Merlot grows better in some soils than Cabernet. So why not plant what grows well there? And so we choose to do that. And it does have a roundness and a softness. So, and the blends are usually better. I mean, 9 times out of 10, when my favorite block every year, it doesn't taste best as a wine. It's a great block, but it's never complete. It needs something.
Mm-hmm. So what, Todd, differentiates this Cabernet, which is amazing, and we have someone watching here. Let's see. Amy here that's commented that it's delicious. So she agrees and loves the winemaking. But what differentiates this from your Rutherford Reserve Cabernet, which we also sell at Binny's? But when people are deciding, which to buy, we'll set price aside, but what's the difference on these two wines?
Great. So it really comes down to location, location, location. So I'm pouring both of them. One's an 18, one's a 17. But so our Napa Valley is a true Napa Valley blend. So it starts at north, if everybody knows the valley or there's the map, North Napa to Calistoga throughout. So it's the whole valley. Where Rutherford is now, we're fine tuning. We're going down the funnel or the hourglass. And Rutherford is the heart of the valley, and it's a small appellation. So the Rutherford all comes from there. And then we own 2 vineyards in Rutherford, which is another distinction. So the Rutherford Reserve comes from 2 of our vineyards, plus Andy Beckstoffer's George III. So we have 3 great vineyards. So it's more localized, I guess. Here we go. So that's Carneros. There we go. Now there's Rutherford appellation. So you see Winston Hill and Benjamin. So that's a good look on the RHF and the reserve. I'm not sure there's another map, but there. Yeah, there's specific Benjamin. So yes, so there. So and you can see it's Valley Floor, Winston Hills across the road. You don't. We can. There it is, right there. Good, perfect. You're good at this.
All lined up for you, Todd.
Good, because I couldn't have done that. So these are our vineyards. So and this is the heart of Rutherford. So that's so there's the Napa blend, all up and down. Some of our vineyards, but a lot of growers, where the reserve is more our fruit plus a little of the Beckstoffer fruit. So just a little more site specific.
Yeah.
And a little richer, fuller.
Yeah, we have a comment from a guest here saying that they have always loved the floral lift that Petit Verdot can bring, and they've picked that up on your Cabernets over the years. And I couldn't, the violets, the purple flowers, really noticeable in the wine, most certainly.
Very cool.
Another question that's come in, and I'm going to give you 2 because the one I don't understand, but maybe you will, and it's been asked twice. So, but we have someone wondering what Mark Tomlinson is wearing to this event tonight. So I'll let you take it if you know what that means. But the second one by the same person is around fires. And I wanted to touch on this as well. Were you affected by the fires? And also, we're reading about how dry the winter has been. So I, wanted to get into kind of what the chatter is locally around this coming summer and what you're expecting, what steps are people taking?
Great. So I have no idea what Mark's wearing, so I'll get that one out of the way right away. And I don't want to hear about it. So let's just put that one away. And then the weather is always on our top of our, it's right at the front of our look. We did have a dry winter. We're in a drought situation as a valley. I can tell you what Frank family has done, and we're very fortunate. We've tapped into reclaimed water from the Carneros region. So our ponds are full right now. So we're looking pretty good. We had a rain a few weeks ago, right before bud break, and that's a great time to have it. So we got water's in the soil. The vines are going to grow well. Let's see what the summer's going to do. But our pond in Rutherford's full. And Carneros is full because we tapped into some reclaimed water that we along with many growers piped into a system to get into the Napa and Sonoma counties wastewater systems. So we're recycling water for the vineyards. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
And so our pond is full because of that in Carneros. In Rutherford, we have wells, groundwater wells that are super strong. So our pond is full there. We are also members of a group called the Liberty Water District that I'm on the board of. And in the 40s, they dammed Conch Creek and built Lake Hennessy. And the property owners along the creek said, "Wait, what happened to our water?" And they allow us to drain water from the dam when needed. So we have that option. So we're good there. So on the whole, personally, Frank family's good. It is scary for the north coast of California. We didn't get enough rain, so it's not great. So people are struggling. We're actually okay, but we've had to drive in water. People are talking about driving in water, so it can be done. Everything can be farmed around. It's just more expensive.
Yep. And related to that, Robin has asked just about the effect of global warming in Napa Valley. And, one of the reasons why Carneros is so appealing, right, to so many people is because they're kind of finding that the coolest place possible down there near the San Pablo Bay. But how has global warming impacted Frank family and kind of what you do in the vineyard? What changes are you seeing there?
So I actually don't know. That's a tricky question, and I don't have all the answers for that. But it is changing. But we farm around it. So we have certain vineyards that we know how to farm pretty well, but we may have to make some adjustments. So it's no different than everyday living. You farm around it. It's not good when there's a dry year, because that takes one of our bullets out of the or whatever, arrows out of the quiver is a better term, I guess. We don't get to use that, but we farm around it, and we'll see what we've had fires. One of your questions, there's no doubt about it. I'm looking out this beautiful landscape, and on the top of the hills, we're all burnt last year, and it affected everybody that works here at the winery, either personally or professionally. People were evacuated. That's not good. We're trying to, the county, the state are trying to pass things to try to fix those topics. And we need to work on it. But I'm no expert at that.
Yeah,
so.
no, it's a big question, and it is a lot, and there are no easy answers as well. But it's good to see and hear, though, that a lot of very smart people are working and to the green certification thing as well. That hopefully everyone everyone is making adjustments and moving forward. But it's very hard, I'm sure. I want to just close. We had some comments on how beautiful your tasting room is, and I want to close and just kind of, I've had the privilege to interview a lot of winemakers from Napa Valley, and if you want to just leave us with a couple points, which you've touched on a little bit throughout the tasting tonight, just that kind of what differentiates Frank family, in addition to the beautiful tasting room, but kind of stylistically as well. And I'll put up the wines that we had tonight and just encourage people to, if they didn't taste them tonight, to go ahead and grab those at their local shop. But if you just want to, in closing, Todd, tell us in a few words your thoughts kind of around what separates Frank family from the rest of the pack at Napa.
Ouch, that's a tough question. Yeah, thanks for ending that aspect. But no, it's great that you said a great tasting room. Again, the Frank family. So we're still a family-owned winery. Rich and Leslie, chances are, if you came here and taste, they would come by and say hello and shake your hand and say thank you. And if I'm over here, I'd do the same. Napa Valley is a beautiful place, but it's the hospitality. Here I am looking over. I'm looking at Spring Mountain on one side, Howe Mountain on the other. So and the weather, it's 75 degrees here today, so it's pretty much a perfect day. But we're family owned. You know, we care what we do, and I work directly with the owners, so that's fun. There's you know, and I work with some of my best friends, so that's great too. And that's how we run the operation. So it's a great place. Come out and visit us. We got a lot of outdoor sitting. I'm just looking at a beautiful pink dogwood, which is, we're so lucky this time of year because everything's in bloom right now. So it's fantastic.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing more about Frank Family Vineyards and walking us through. We did the Chardonnay, we touched on the Pinot Noir, the Zinfandel, the Cabernet, the Rutherford Reserve Cabernet. So thank you very much. And cheers to you.
Cheers, thank you.
We look forward to welcoming you to Vinnie's when possible in the months and years ahead. And maybe out your way. You described your setting so beautifully. I want to get out there.
When you're here, come check us out.
Thanks, Todd. Have a great night. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Be sure to check out our website for upcoming virtual events.
Cheers.